So was that a real band, or is that going to be a AI-generated music?
Generated.
Definitely generated.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not real. I don't think that's real.
Too much of a loop.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. Let's see.
You gonna tell us if we're right?
Well, hold on. Let me try to compare it to something here, if you don't mind.
That's real.
Yeah, that's got to be
definitely
real.
Okay.
It has a human voice on it.
Even before that, I was thinking
you all
real.
claimed it was real before you heard the voice, though. So.
True.
Yeah, that's also very true.
So there's that. Okay, so let's see. Let's see if there's... Because these are...
I think that's a human.
That's fake.
AI.
Definitely AI.
AI.
That riff was so nasty, though. I was just like, that's a cool riff.
Yeah.
All right.
What about that first one, though?
That first one was AI. The second one was a band called Periphery. And let's see. Here's another one. See if you guys can guess whether this is... Hold up.
That's that same riff.
It's AI.
But that just seems real to me.
I don't know. I
But
hear
it's
the
the
So
same.
gross.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
That's AI again.
Yeah.
But,
But see, a lot of metal music is produced to sound very machine-like.
Right.
And so that's why it's kind of hard to tell sometimes.
After this episode, we can have the fans decide if this is an AI-generated podcast or real.
Turn left at your next podcast destination.
Hey, everybody. I'm Dane Holland.
I'm Austin Shazam Pfeiffer.
I'm Marcus. I'm Electric Man.
I'm Austin Tiny Zent.
And this is Nerded Through the Grapevine, the podcast where four best friends gather weekly to talk about our favorite parts of past, present, and future nerd culture.
This next segment we're going to call Murder Through the Grapevine. While listening to this next section, make sure that you do not have any kind of, vomiting-inducing symptoms that happen when you hear gory things or things that are of the violent nature. So just make sure that you know that that's coming up, guys. Here a couple weeks ago, we got together and I talked a little bit about murder mysteries and talked about true crime podcasts a little bit and how they're very popular and a lot of people listen to them, and about how I had gotten into investigating the murder of my grandfather, Charles Leonard Templeton. It was something that was very interesting to me because I'd only heard bits and pieces of it throughout my life from different family members, because it was something that had ended up being suppressed, like a repressed memory kind of thing, but it was like suppressed for them to even talk about it. Like there was always hush hush, just because so much stuff revolved around it that ended up being very, very sketchy. And I actually went to the sheriff's department in my hometown, and they gave me the case file. I was able to read through the case file a little bit, and I took some notes. The notes that I took on it also consist of how many people there were in the trial, as far as jury members, as far as people that were writing their point of view witness testimonies that were sworn testimonies as to what had really happened. Being an ex-police officer actually did help me while I'm reading these interview questions and reading these different articles that they've written out as far as their eyewitness testimony goes, because it's sworn statements and testimonies. And whenever you're going through investigations, what you learn is the quickest way to the truth is a straight line, because you're trying to, if you're trying to spin a tale, or if you're trying to, get somebody's attention off the fact of something, you're going to elicit details. You're going to put details in there that just do not matter. Just like instead of, giving the events that are particular to this certain event, like when was the last time you saw Charles Leonard Templeton along with the two murderers? I'm not going to say their names out there because I don't want to put that out there yet. But it was what were you doing that day? Well, as far as I remember, we was all just hanging out and we was having a beer or two, and then we went driving, and then the Tennessee State Trooper pulled us over, and the Tennessee State Trooper, I thought they was going to arrest us. I mean, we were out there talking to him. We were out there, just make sure and the details on like little stuff that shouldn't matter to the details of a story are what's blown up and what is exaggerated in order to create a smokescreen in order to try to evade the truth.
That's like what nerds do in nerd culture, to whenever there's this epic, crazy story and there's this little tiny moment in it to where we latch onto that little side detail that matters not, and it can ruin something for so many people.
Yeah, because most likely what's ended up occurring with that is going to be a different memory of a different time that has nothing to do with the circumstances that you're trying to describe in this sworn testimony. You're just throwing it in there for flavor and context to try to, evade the truth, evade what the actual point is going to be. There were 4 different testimonies that were submitted, and only one of them was a straightforward factual story. And his name was Ricky Pfeiffer. No relation, by the way. Ricky Pfeiffer was in the vehicle, the 4th person in the vehicle when my grandfather was murdered. He saw everything eyewitness. He saw everything take place the way that it took place. And based off of his witness testimony, it was gruesome. It was bad, because what they did was, my grandfather witnessed them stealing government checks, which they would pretty much just kind of wait around the post office. People would get their checks delivered to the P.O. box, and they would steal them. They would break into the P.O. boxes, and they would steal these government checks. Well, he saw them doing this, and in doing so, they took interest in him to eliminate the idea of somebody being able to ruin their perfect crime, because there's no surveillance at post offices. This is 1981. You get your stuff delivered. It's a secure lockbox. Nobody's going to get this stuff. They took him, and they planned to get him intoxicated, and what they didn't realize is he was a functional alcoholic. What a functional alcoholic means is you have such a dependency upon alcohol that you do not function well without it. So your blood alcohol level is going to be double to triple the amount of a normal person's, and you are still going to be not exhibiting any signs of intoxication. So what they did is they went out, they got him drunk, so they thought, and they pulled him to this old cistern that was at on a property towards the area they were all living in. A lot of people knew about it, but it was kind of off in the woods, real secluded, and they decided that it was just going to take one big bash on the head with a giant wooden instrument. It wasn't really described well in the case file, but it was. That's what they said it was.
Was it a piano? I feel like it was a piano.
A piano on a rope.
Yeah. They planned it out really that well. They had it hoisted, and then they had played. Yeah,
Come along.
But hit him in the back of the head with a large piece of wood. Split his skull open. Didn't stop him, because he was ready to fight at that point. Then they stabbed him in the chest with a 10-inch fighting knife. That didn't stop him. And then he continued to fight for his life. Then with the struggle of the 2 men that were the murderers, and then Ricky in the car not moving, watching the whole thing happen, they ended up, one of the individuals grabbed him from behind and held his arms, while the other one from the front sliced 5 to 7 times into his throat with that same fighting knife, which ultimately was what killed him. Here's where it gets a little bit hairy. Everything sounds just all well and good and normal, just your standard murder at that point. Then we get into what happens after the murder, and that's what is really blowing my hair back. My uncle was arrested at the time and held in a different county's jailing facilities. He was held for 60 days for a crime he did not commit. And there were a lot of questions going around at the time as to, what was going on with this murder case, why it was taking, so long, and how many jurors were put into it. Guys, there were over 100 different jurors that came in and out of this case for different reasons. And by law, the only real way you can get rid of them just willy-nilly is you get 6 per side. You get 6 for the defense side, the 6 for the prosecution side, to where if you don't even like the way they look, you can just say, okay, you're out of here. And for them to be over 100 in this small town case is just ridiculous. And what I saw while I'm going through the case files for this is a lot of the murderers, actual people that they put in there, they had multiple people that they were, getting rid of on this jury that, outnumbered what that legal amount was supposed to be. So it's kind of like, well, how is this happening? Mm-hmm. And it seems almost like they were cherry picking their jury to suit what they were wanting to spin as their narrative. And also they had, with my uncle being arrested, the reason that's a big deal is because he was held in jail. He was supposed to serve 45 days, which he never went to trial for his sentence. He was sentenced in the judge's chambers. They took him to the judge's chambers. They had this little thing. They said, and the judge said, all right, well, I sentenced you to 60 days, and you got to serve 70%, which would have been 45 days. So he's in there, and he serves this, this time. It gets to the full amount of 60 days. And he's supposed to be released. He's supposed to already be out of there. And then they come in and they have a charge that they have found that he is supposed to be guilty of. And it was a vehicular homicide, is what they would refer to it as nowadays, a hit and run, and they just called it murder in those days. So they said that we're holding you for murder because they weren't going to let him out of jail. And
were they afraid he was going to find out what happened to his brother?
His dad.
Or his dad.
Yes, but here's the problem with it. As I was talking to my uncle about this, and I'm trying to figure out, this is crazy, but what this has to do with the main, overarching case. What's the deal? He had been talking to Dan Rather from a national news broadcast about covering this story and the ups and downs of why this is such a topsy-turvy case and what is going on. Why is this evidence being mishandled? Why is the main eyewitness, Ricky Pfeiffer, now dead? No relation. And even the circumstances surrounding his death were ridiculous because he was under protective custody with the police because he was going to be ratting on these other 2 individuals, kind of a confidential informant kind of thing. So he gets he's protected, okay? He's in isolation in another jail, and it just so happens they find a charge on him of a bad check, which is a misdemeanor offense. Okay, no big deal. They take him to court for this offense, and he happens to find a vehicle outside of the courthouse where he's being tried that has the keys in it, that has no registration or ownership of any type associated to it. There's no registration in the vehicle, no tags on the vehicle, no nothing inside of the vehicle. He gets the vehicle, and he takes off in it. Shortly down the road, he is actually taken out, wrecked by one of the sheriff's department vehicles that was the sheriff. And the report this is supposedly what the report says. I'm not got a hold of the files from that specific town, but this is from multiple different sources that I'm hearing this, is that he was then killed in what is called the fleeing felon law. They are able to shoot somebody who is running from the police after they got caught doing a felony, like vehicular theft.
But can you steal a car that doesn't have an owner? Because technically, if it's not registered, it's not owned by anyone.
But that's the thing. If he's this, I'll get to it. Hold on. He is then shot in the base of the neck.
And this is Ricky, the one that was in the car, and
the one that was with the key witness, the one who saw it all and was willing to tell it all. He was shot in the base of the neck from over 300 yards with a snub-nosed pistol. Somebody think about this who's ever shot guns.
That's not possible. Well, okay, it's possible, but extremely unlikely.
Improbable to the max.
Yes.
You're lucky to hit a house from 300 yards with a snub-nosed pistol, much less hit somebody with accuracy in the base of the spine, like the base of your neck.
Right.
That's an assassin kill shot. I'm instantly going to sever everything in your body that keeps it functioning and you die. Shot. My uncle's friend was actually the one who was the ambulance driver, the one who went and picked up the body, and he said there were powder burns on his clothes. So that would mean
That's point blank.
Well, a snub nose can launch powder from a shot
Oh,
300
yeah,
yards, just like a
yeah.
can of bullets.
so
Almost as if it was pressed against the back of his head.
But no, it was fleeing felon.
So once in, and again, you're thinking, well, how would these people, afford just little small town folk in Sparta that just so happen to kill somebody? How would they afford this? And something happened while they were in custody, and their house burned down. Oh my gosh! And they had fire insurance, so they got a very large sum of money that came to them while they were in custody. And it just so happens that something very sketchy happens with a sheriff that's holding the main inmate in their case. How would they even know? The week before, the paperwork filed was for the right for discovery. If you're in a case, you have a right to face your accusers. So the motion of discovery means that even if they are confidential informants, that you know their identity. That's why there's no such thing as a confidential informant. If they have the motion of discovery passed in a serious situation like this case, you get to know everybody who's talking about it and everybody that they're using in the key witnesses. And it just so happens that this one ends up dying. This big flux of money comes to him from this house fire, and this is all loose, okay? Mm-hmm. This is all very loose, but circumstantially, all this stuff stacking up the way that it does should not be in a small town murder. Those are crimes of passion. Those are crimes of something that these aren't premeditated giant schemes.
Cover-ups.
Mm-hmm.
There was an individual named Gladys Cricket Wilson, and I'm going to say her name because I believe that she is dead.
Mm-hmm.
She was another key witness, one of the material witnesses actually in the case is what they refer to her as. She's one of the material witnesses, and that's going to be building the belief of whether or not these people are the bad people that they are supposed to be or not. They went to subpoena her, and every instance her name is mentioned in the case file, they just have a question mark or cannot locate. They never found her. And that actually got the sheriff of my local hometown and a couple of his investigators pretty excited about me investigating this stuff because they want to know as well. They're like, they're asking their own little questions, and they're asking, did they try to subpoena her, or was she supposed to be subpoenaed? I'm like, they had the paperwork. They could just never find her. I need to know if she was ever found. Mm-hmm. And it's a hard thing to do before 1990 when everything started going more computerized. Everything back in the 80s is all if you don't have a physical paper copy, you're not going to have anything on it. But I do have the pictures from the case. I do have the cistern with the blood smear on the side of it. I do have pictures of my grandfather's body. It was gruesome. Mm-hmm. It was very gruesome. But the mysteries surrounding the case are even more questionable in my brain because this is grandiose scheme. There were even individuals that were involved in the FBI that had this 16-year-old girl at the time in witness protection. And I've got the receiptings from that and the descriptors in the case file from everything that she's going through. So it's going to stack up to be something insane and something crazy. And I'm glad to be able to share my story with you guys and about everything that happened with it, because it's not an everyday thing. That's something like that. It's just like a legend in your family, like a myth, and people are afraid to talk about it just because of the circumstances that surrounded it.
Oh yeah.
That's really cool.
And
awful as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and being such a big nerd, like you're getting to nerd out on the details of this too. Like it's something that you're hyper focused on, and you're enjoying the search.
Yes.
Not any part of what happened are you enjoying, but you're getting that serotonin from all this research and like interviewing and like what you could possibly find.
Yes.
And it's a
story.
Crazy. Yeah.
You're trying to find the story, find the truth of it.
And with the assistance of my mother, who was, of course, it was her father who was murdered. With her assistance, she has reached out to some of these people that she had actually known from the time, because she got to know a lot of the people that were involved with the investigation of the case. The main TBI investigator, who is now retired, has agreed to meet with me and actually discuss this case with me, as well as the district attorney that was involved with the case case at the time that was the main attorney for the case has agreed to meet with me as well.
You're not just dicking around. Like,
This is for real. I mean,
Just don't get us assassinated.
yeah,
Yeah,
please.
Yeah, don't.
I will throw this out there. There has already been a warning given to me, and the sheriff of my hometown did issue me a warning, and he said, Austin, if you are going to be looking into this and you are going to be investigating as to what actually happened, you may run into something that's not supposed to be seen. Because if this is a cover up and this is something that is a large scale that goes even beyond what the FBI is doing, he says there's no telling who they were involved with. There's no telling what was actually going on here, and that makes my stomach hurt a little bit.
Yeah,
but also
I live here. I live with you.
Yeah, but at the same time, that risk factor is much lower than it would be, say, if the people were still alive or if the ones that were in question were still kicking. The sheriff that was supposedly involved in that in that conspiracy of killing the main witness, that sheriff is dead. And it's just, I'm going to try to fact check stuff. I'm going to try to go along and get case files and get instances, because what I'm hoping for is actually I can go to that hometown, like that other town that's close to my hometown where everything was involved in. I just don't want to name names and get things out there right now. But
because that's how you get killed.
Yeah. So if I get there and I actually get a case file from it, like there should be, I'm going to be able to read up on that. But in my back of my head, I'm thinking I'm going to get there and they're going to just say there's no record of anything.
We'll find out.
Yep.
Are we going to get to make a montage of you like having like all these pictures and headlines on corkboards with like
Charlie,
yarn
from
Red
Always Sunny?
string, red yarn.
I do
connecting
have
all the
yarn.
dots.
We got to make one.
Yes.
Yeah, I've started knitting, so I've got yarn.
I thought that yarn was what you did when you were really tired, Tony.
No, that's yawn. But you are spinning a yarn.
That's true.
Good luck with that. See, you're always set up with great segues,
It's the
Tiny.
greatest.
Good
Well,
luck.
The good thing about this topic is I always start the same way. Does it? Okay. Anybody know what time it is?
Shut up.
Tiny's terrible tab.
You knew it was time for Tiny's terrible tabs.
2:09 p.m.
So, the first tab on my list I found through a short form video service because I found a content creator that has this product, and I think I don't even know how to describe it. It's an amazing thing. It's a technological advancement. I think it's going to help a lot of people. It's called the Sea Brace, and it's made by Autobach. It is a set of leg braces that are robotic, and they were manufactured to help people that are paraplegic walk again. So instead of using your leg muscles, you have to do some exercises and practicing with it to build up your core enough to remain upright, but it allows you to stand and walk and function as a average person. I think that's the political correct way to say it.
Person that is physically able, I think it would say.
Yeah.
Right?
It'll allow them to go up and down stairs, just live a pretty much normal life that they've not been able to do in a very long time. This one particular lady, she was involved in I think it was a surfing accident that left her paralyzed from the waist down, and she's not been able to stand or walk or anything for, I think she said, about 5 years. And I got to see her. She was so excited that she would get to just stand in the kitchen and hug her family. To watch these people see her like they used to see her was just like mind-blowing for them, and they were so happy that she was happy and she got to feel normal and like her old self again. It was very touching and a very cool thing.
That's cool that it shows she's showing you the process.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Through this no-named short-form video service.
Yeah,
This
very
is
cool.
also a social platform, I believe. Mobile app, possibly?
Possibly,
Okay.
yes.
All right.
Possibly. Another exciting thing, Elon Musk is known as an iPhone user, has used one of them for years. He's gotten to the point where he hates iPhones, just like I do, because I'm also an iPhone user currently, and I hate it.
Me too.
I hate it so bad. Well, he is going to make the Tesla phone. He's already done like a press release about it, and he's including some really cool features into it theoretically is going to release at the end of December of this year, and the price is going to run between $800 and $1,200. So it's going to be standard cell phone price, which is dope, especially considering the things that he's going to put in it.
Is it going to have a how-to video guide to how to look like a human lollipop?
It does not, unfortunately.
Damn.
One of the cool things is it's going to link up with SpaceX's space-based internet, Starlink. So you're going to have better reception, better service. You're going to be able to essentially use your phone anywhere on the planet because you're not bound to, terrestrial cell phone towers. You're literally bouncing off freaking satellite network. So you have what you thought of in the old days as a satellite phone.
I think that he's missing out on a great opportunity to get a very popular band song and change one word of it, because he's got the money to do so. If he wanted to take somebody's song and say, like, hey, I bought this song from you. So Journey, listen up. You need to sell any way you want it to this man, because it's now anywhere you want it. That's the place you need it. That is the SpaceX phone motto.
Okay.
I didn't know what the flapping was for a second.
I'm trying to fucking fly away, Tiny. What do you think?
You can grab the bell and ring it yourself. I'm not the sole user.
I've been fussed on in the past for doing such.
Well, you was also trying to canonize erroneous things, so I retract that offer. It is also going to include solar charging. Basically, a lot of Tesla vehicles, especially the higher end ones, have solar panels built in the roofs of them, so it solar charges their vehicles. They're going to build that in the back of your phone, and they're going to make cases to allow it to be used and still be protected.
I was fixing to say, but getting your phone out in the sun is the bad idea. But
Yeah,
if they've
well,
got
I mean,
something that can keep it cool
exactly.
while also absorbing.
Well, I mean, they're saying, like, if you're standing
sunlight.
outside, walking, whatever, in whatever giant city where you walk all the time, and you, like, do cell phone things, it can be charging then.
while you got it out. Gotcha.
Yeah, or, you lay in the car seat when you drive on your commute, whatever.
Yeah.
And they're going to have a vehicle control app, which already exists for Teslas, but this is going to be pre-installed and more in-depth onto that particular cell phone because it's all going to be basically proprietary things.
Oh, they're going to sell so many more freaking Teslas because of the Tesla phone, just because people are going to have to get the accessory to operate with the phone.
Yeah. They're also, it's going to be Android based, so there's that. So you don't
Much more customizable.
Yes, you can do so many things with that. They're also going to include astrophotography, so you're going to be able to tap into the Satellite X's satellites and take pictures of things out in space that are far off.
I just
So
wish.
it's like Google Earth Plus.
I wish the audience could have seen how wide Marcus's eyes got whenever you said that.
Wait a second.
It's just like he opened up a Christmas present for something he actually asked for.
Yeah.
I want to take pictures of the universe. Who doesn't?
Right? It's going to have crypto mining capabilities, and it's also going to have Neuralink support. So whenever that happens, which he still wants to do, and he's going to make it available to people with mental conditions and things of that sort first, but it's going to have things that interact with that built into the phone, so you can control that Neuralink via your cell phone.
I haven't heard that it can make a phone call yet.
It can make a phone call.
Okay.
I'm just
Well,
telling
it
you
is
the
a
cool
phone.
stuff.
Right.
It is,
So it is a phone.
it is
Okay.
definitely a phone.
I got you. Okay.
The last couple of things, which are also really cool, it's going to come standard with 1 to 2 terabytes of storage, 64 gigabytes or more of RAM, and a 6.5-inch AMOLED LED display.
That's nothing like my Gateway 2000 computer was. That's like 77 of my Gateway 2000 computers in the palm of your hand.
This is all like the concept, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it's all in
this
his
is-
brain.
this is his
Nothing
goals of what he's wanting to do.
Right. Okay, so it's none of it is he doesn't have like a thing to show you. Like here's one in my hand. Like
Well,
we just got to make them now.
They had like a rendering, and they had
Right.
they had some components already worked up, but they're still in the infancy. They have to assemble it,
Right.
and I'm sure the first generation is going to be garbage. But I'm
Probably,
still going
yeah.
to get it if it comes out in time, because I am not sticking with this crapple iPhone. The next thing I found harkens back to a previous episode that I was actually listening to today. Do you remember the Super Mario Brothers cassette tape that nobody seems to remember exists?
that you had that you played in your
My Goosebumps cassette player.
Yeah.
I found it on eBay for $20.
What?
Did you buy it?
I have not bought it, but I wanted to show you that it exists. I mean, if I buy it, I have no way to play the damn thing.
Find the Goosebumps cassette player.
Oh, it is. It got stomped by my dad.
Order
no,
one.
I
No,
mean, look at eBay.
A new used one.
Yeah, I mean,
Recreate
I'm
your
sure-
childhood.
I'm sure it can be done. I also this I don't know why I looked this up. Solfege, the do re mi fa sol la ti do crap that we all did in choir.
That's called what?
Solfege.
Solfege is the name of that?
Yeah.
I was not listening in choir.
Yeah, I remembered it. It just came to me suddenly, and I'm like, why is it called this? Why is it a thing? Because it sounds really stupid. So I looked up the origins of it. It came about in the 11th century, where theorist, impronounceable Italian name, he created it as a way to teach simple melodies at a fast pace to singers who at the time couldn't read or had access to music. So it was a way to convey how to play or sing a song, because each of the notes of solfege is in a major key, and they also have it in a minor key, and blah, blah, blah. So it was a way to quickly and rapidly tell you the notes in a song without having you read music.
And that was after the church had allotted the ability to actually give harmonies to music, because I forget what date it was, you actually weren't allowed to have harmonies in music when it came to religious music. It had to be all in unison, all the same note. Nobody was allowed to sing anything differently than what was put there. And then they allowed that later on and said, okay, well, you can put these one or two harmonies with it, but they would even limit how many harmonies they were.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Well, there's the thing called the Devil's Triad or something, and it was like kind of a band sequence of notes.
Is that like the space between like where your wiener is and your butthole?
There's all three of those things.
you expose it and you hear
The brown note.
Are you talking about your scrums?
Yes.
the nacho, whatever you want to call it.
So solfege led me down this strange rabbit hole, because then I looked up castrato, which back in the day they would take young boys that were singers and then castrate them so their voices wouldn't change, so they could hit the high soprano notes but have the lung capacity of a full-grown adult man. That was the thought.
It's awful.
Yeah, it's terrible.
It's terrible.
The last one of those was in the 1900s.
Shut up!
but
That's what I'm talking about.
Sorry.
So the last castrato died in 1922, and you can find recordings
That's
of
like
him.
100 years ago.
I know, and his name was Moreschi. It's way closer than I'm comfortable with it being.
I thought there was a Fidel Castrato that died just a few years ago.
No, that was Castro.
Okay.
This man was a castrato.
Yes. Okay.
Just imagine that man just having a domineering presence over the entire population of Cuba. But
Just by the way he sings.
But everybody has to like respect his power and his dominant position, even though he's yelling out orders. Hey, you can have it, dude, I say.
And this individual Moreschi was I'm
You can do
just
it.
going to go ahead and say it. He was a blisteringly ugly man. Because, I mean, it wasn't his fault. He got, mutilated as a child and
For music.
for music's sake. And you can listen to recordings of him today, and it's kind of chilling knowing that poor guy, what had happened to him.
And the atonal frequencies that those voices would produce back on the old recordings when they had them, that's what Tiny Tim, you might remember him if you've ever seen the Insidious series, Tiptoe by the window. That's the actual tone that he sought to produce whenever he was singing the way he was to replicate the sound of the old recordings of the castratos.
That's why it's so creepy. sounding
Exactly.
Like
Yeah, he sang it. It was terrible. I also looked up Repple Depple.
I'm already intrigued.
Yeah, I'm like, what the heck's a Repple Depple? I just recently listened to the audiobook Tommy Knockers by Stephen King.
I'm sorry.
For some reason, most people just have no recollection that book or even movie exists. And after making my way through the book, I understand why, because the book was bad. And I love Stephen King so much, but it was just god awful. But I mean, even the best can have clunkers. That shows us that they're human, I guess. Also, do not ever listen to that man read any of his own books. It sounds like it's going to be great, but it is not. Anyway,
Tip from the expert, honestly.
yes.
Yeah.
So in Tommy Knockers, there's this one just section that's only like 20, 30 minutes long. They say Repple Depple so many times. And I'm just like, what is this? Why? A Repple Depple was a depot or a facility where troops were processed before being assigned to a unit or sent home after surgery or a tour of duty. So it was just the stop in a midpoint of wherever you was going, and that was army guy slang apparently.
Repple Depple.
Yes, it sounds stupid. I hate it.
It's the,
We
no,
just got to the Repple Depple of the episode, the midpoint. How about that? That's funny.
I just need to never look around while I'm speaking.
It's
because
hot in
it's-
here, so we
I
gotta,
know it is.
We gotta take the top of our shirt.
And I'm
literally
still
stripping.
wearing more clothes than all of you.
that
and
never
I-
happens.
I know that
Ever.
never happens, and I'm still fully covered.
actually, technically, just by sizing, you are always wearing more clothes than the rest of us.
That's mean and hurtful.
That's not. You're a large American.
I know, and I've lost an entire person.
I know.
I don't know where they went.
I'm not upset
Who
with it.
cares? They're
I
gone.
don't care. Them.
I would like to take a moment for us to answer questions where Reddit didn't ask the grapes. First off, the question asked by Sog King. I have no idea how to say that. It is, what company / franchise doesn't deserve their fan base? Marcus, if you've already got an answer, go.
Well, I was just kind of relying on last episode's DC.
Okay.
I feel like they've they've let their fans down.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. That is definitely the current thing that we're all dealing with as DC fans. And if it happens enough, it's going to become the commonplace and almost like a joke in itself. And if they get to that point where they make so many things so bad, even the smallest success will be just astronomical because of how bad it's been for so long. So yeah, DC definitely doesn't deserve the fan base right now, I would say.
I was going to say McDonald's.
McDonald's? Yeah.
Little kids love their garbage food. It
Yes.
is literally garbage.
It's not
I've
food.
smelt garbage that smelled better and tasted better. I've not tasted the garbage, but I assume it
Right.
would taste better.
Right. You can taste through smell.
I don't
Yes.
know.
Yeah.
It tastes pretty good to me.
You like McDonald's?
I mean, yeah.
What do you
I'm
eat
I'm
there?
a large American too.
What do you get there?
Burgie.
Do you get a burgie?
Upon investigation of this topic, now I would like to Americanize Chinese food.
You want to Americanize
No.
Chinese
It's
food? That's
already
been done.
Americanized.
Yeah, it's
no,
way been
no.
done.
Americanized Chinese food has a fan base that it does not deserve.
Oh, you mean like,
okay. Yeah,
the
yeah,
Chinese
yeah.
buffet.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
there's
okay.
something about like
It's like
panda,
2 out
whatever.
of 2 that I feel pretty attacked by. I like Americanized Chinese food.
Yeah, it's
So you like Panda Express?
It's so yeah.
Yeah, that Panda
Ugh.
Express. They've got a coconut fried shrimp that's really good.
I mean, I've eaten there a few times. It's
Right,
not bad, but I don't go, Asian cuisine.
because
No, it's just cheap. It's a cheap knockoff.
It is
so-
not cheap.
Yeah, that's true.
It is more expensive than going to the actual place where there's actual Chinese people making me food.
yeah, because if you go to the Chinese buffet, you're getting like the mass produced, like ingredientless, slop that they have to put out, as opposed to getting your single order stuff that ends up having so much more love and so much more spirit put into it, like their ancestors.
See, I thought along the lines of something that I have been, I guess, subject to, and that's Fortnite. But the part of the fan base, I don't want to talk about the ones that love it. I want to talk about the ones that hate it, because at its core, Fortnite is a really good idea that I know a lot of people that play it that hate it now used to play it back in its early days and got tired of it, like it's old thinking, and then it became really cool to hate it because little kids love it and you see it everywhere and you get tired of it and it just becomes this little kid annoying thing. But it's a video game that runs so smoothly, that's played online with cartoon style graphics with violence that is not gory in any way. It's all cartoonized and it's free. Like, it's a free thing. This is a free video game that people can play. And when you spend money on it, it doesn't make you any better at the game. You just get different cosmetic stuff. So, like, the idea of here's a game that no matter what amount of money anyone has, everybody can play this free game. And if you do have the money, you can make your stuff look different. And that's really cool. But there are a lot of negatives involved with that, like the predatory, ways of getting kids to spend their parents' money on all these different Fortnite skins and
meaningless
stuff.
things.
Right. But
that ties
And all
into
the little fork knife dances.
yeah.
that ties into Marcus's, hatred of the DC thing that he talked about, that we talked about previously, that also revolved around Dwayne Johnson, and he had a statue of himself put into the game.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was there for a limited event that you had a giant statue of Dwayne.
Interesting.
I don't know if it was The Rock or if it was Dwayne Johnson.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Well, he was made out of stone. If it's a statue.
Oh, either way, he was The Rock.
He was The Rock.
Ooh.
Should we
But
R
you
ourselves?
talk about it as if he's doing this himself. You don't think that that's what his bosses want him to do too?
I don't know if the man has bosses.
Okay,
I mean,
fair
have
enough.
you
He is his
seen the
boss.
man?
Fair enough.
I really,
He's a small mountain.
I really don't think he's got bosses.
He may not. But that's my thing, that I don't think it deserves the fan base that dislikes it so much, because they're still fans because they played it at one point. Anyway, that was the first thing that came to my mind when I saw that question. Next, this is asked by Busted, and it is, without telling us the title, what is your favorite video game? Think about that for a second. And mine, we'll see if you can answer it, which I think we've even talked about in the past, so it may be easier for you guys. But my favorite video game is Spaceman That Fights Good Goes Around Making Alien Friends to maybe stop ancient genocidal squid machines from wiping out life.
The Matrix.
No. Well, I mean, that is that.
It sounds
That
like
is
the Matrix.
that is really close to the Matrix, not the video game in question.
Yeah, I don't know.
Don't know?
I don't
know the game?
title of it. No.
No? Bosto?
Lawnmower Simulator.
Dang it.
Mass Effect?
Yes, that is Mass Effect.
That's good.
And I say maybe stop the ancient genocidal squid machines, because at the end you can choose to just go against everything you've been doing for 3 games straight to have the same scene happen again. But anyway, that's my favorite game, but without the title. Who else?
Teenage robot with abandonment issues seeks holographic father to defeat major, also robot enemy.
Whoa.
Sonic.
No, you're thinking of Metal Sonic.
He's a fighting robot.
Is it like Final Fantasy or
Oh,
something?
Mega Man?
Mega Man?
Yep.
Oh, I've never known the point of Mega Man. Like, I've never known
Yeah.
the goal. I've just known it was a cool blue man with a gun hand.
Yep. I'm basing that off of the Super Nintendo Mega Man X storyline, because that's the one that I most heavily used.
Oh, okay. Well, you fooled me.
Okay. Pubescent blonde Asian man boy travels through fantastical realms, meets individuals. Some can summon demons from other planes to fight with them to defeat big bads.
Final Fantasy VII.
No.
Oh.
Close.
Final Fantasy X.
6.
Yes.
Okay, so it was Final Fantasy.
Yes,
Final
okay.
Fantasy. Okay, I had to get
I
down.
said blonde, okay?
That's
yeah.
Cloud.
Titus was blonde.
Cloud's blonde.
Also
was
Titus,
he?
but he didn't have the summons.
Oh.
Ambiguous warrior person wakes up mysteriously and wanders through a very ambiguous story and kills everything and gets killed by everything.
Skyrim.
Phasmophobia?
No.
Elden Ring.
Elden Ring. Yeah.
Oh,
That's great.
Hey, some of the get good on Elden Ring, it's grueling but also rewarding. I've recently gotten into the 80s with my level, and it's taken so long. I don't, Marcus. I don't see how you're like 160 something. Like it's
140 something, I think.
How dare me?
We'll just wait.
Well,
till
no,
you
I mean, but to say, once you get into those later areas, all the enemies give you more runes, so it's easier to get those higher numbers.
I've made it to the mountaintop of giants. I understand.
Oh, dude, I've lost so many runes in the mountaintops.
My last question goes more towards the part of nerd stuff and farts.
Yay,
The farts
Farts.
part, not just farts. So this is asked by Symmetrical Boy, and that is, your toilet is now sentient.
Oh, God.
Would you prefer it to passionately, exuberantly crave your excrement, or deeply resent and despise you for what you do to it, and why?
I think that both of them can sound punishing. Honestly, I think that they can both sound very punishing, but with slightly different tones. because one of them could be like, no, 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 and, and the other one can be like, no, 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 no. So one is just extreme passion and joy, and the other one is just like, I can't believe this is my life. But there has to be a middle ground of where the toilet mouth pops open whenever you get off of it, and you get it finally flushed, and it goes, it's a living.
Can mine just be apathetic? Because
that's not the part of the. That's not the options. It's a yes or. It's basically a yes or no with the.
Well, the upside is I wouldn't have to keep a pie server in the bathroom anymore.
Correct.
The downside is it would have to hate me because of what I do to it. There's no way that any sentient being, unless it was just completely messed up in the head, would enjoy the things that I put in it.
See, I think I would rather mine just be like, gimme, 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 gimme.
I want more.
Feed me.
You know, I think I would have to have mine hate me too. Like, I would want it to talk like mad shit.
Good one.
Man. Like, I would want it, because I don't know, I think it would fuel me. It would, like, you know what I mean?
Like, you ain't got it.
I get
You don't have
disgusted
it
with
in you.
myself too, but to the point where I can laugh at it. And so he would just generate all these funny things for me.
Yeah.
God, you ever thought about eating a vegetable? I've never seen anything so puffy and strained. You ever thought about some fiber, bro? When are you going to try some fiber or some vegetables?
So you want to you want to relate to your sentient toilet. You want to become friends with it, knowing that it hates what you're doing to it, but it also kind of understands.
Yeah, and just kind
Okay.
of like, just torture it.
I mean, I feel like I would try to be friends with it too. I'd be like, man, I am so sorry, but this is gonna have to happen,
And Danes,
and then it's gonna cuss me so hard.
Danes is in there just bebopping around like with a high school marching band behind it, just getting super excited for Dane to just put some excrement into it. Ooh, I crave shit. I crave shit. Ooh.
Show up for date night where there's candles and soft music playing.
And
It's like, I got what you want.
and he's needing some more potassium. This shit is bananas. BANANAS.
God.
Oh, okay. We'll switch gears here. I want to talk about, I'm going to do another trope talk
Okay.
powered by Overly Sarcastic Productions on YouTube.
Excellent.
They just put great videos out, and they always have like really interesting things to say about some of these tropes that we're all very familiar with. So today I'm going to talk about immortal characters.
Yee.
Well, we are going to talk about immortal characters.
Okay. I could talk about a couple, maybe.
So immortal characters exist in like literally the most ancient, oldest fiction we've ever come across. Like the Epic of Gilgamesh, and you know the Vedas or whatever. Like pretty much all mythology, you know, deals with these kind of immortal characters. But a lot of the times, like they're gods, you know, like Zeus or Poseidon or whatever, Marduk from ancient Sumerian. Like they're not really dynamic characters so often. They're more just like fixtures of the world, right?
Well, and they have to be immortal in that sense for them to be praised forever. Like they
Right.
have to exist immortally, because if they die completely, then they will lose their following, right? Because I mean, that's the way they have to design them, is they have to exist infinitely. So
Right.
that way the religion or the following or whatever doesn't die off like the way the character does.
Like Chuck Norris.
Exactly.
He's on his way. But yeah, it's either that, at least in old ancient mythology, it seems to be. I'm no expert or anything, but it's either like this character is a staple of the world in a sense, or it's like some sort of anthropomorphization of some sort of idea or some sort of law of nature, as ancient peoples would have seen it. But then like your stories where actually human characters are like looking for a way to avoid death is also a way that immortality kind of affects human storytelling. Basically, a lot of your immortal characters are like gods, spirits, demons, fairies, elves, and that kind of falls under like a non-human immortal.
Right.
And, you know, because mortals gaining immortality tends to be like kind of a different type of storytelling.
Right.
And those are like where the fun stuff is. That's like where it's that's the ones that become dynamic characters in
Right.
their search for immortality,
Like
and stuff
Hercules.
like that. Right, exactly.
It's not built into their DNA like these other fantastical creatures. Like
Right.
it's something we have to search for. So there's a journey involved, or there's like tribulations involved in trying to.
Well, and it's just
gain that.
instantly relatable because us as humans kind of know that we have limited amount of time.
Right.
Even if we maybe not think about that all the time, it's still subconsciously there. Like we understand that this is going to end one day.
It's absolution. Like
Right.
There's no. Yeah.
So the eternal youth is kind of one of these archetypes. They won't age, they won't die, but you can kind of kill them.
Okay.
So that would be like your Greek gods, your Tolkienian elves as well. So it's like they live forever. They're not human, but and then they just naturally are immortal.
Okay.
That's just the nature of their being.
But they can be killed.
But they can be killed.
Right.
There is like your magically sustained immortality, which think Melisandre kind of from Game of Thrones. That's the first one that came to my mind, at least, because based on the show, she has to sustain her youth and beauty kind of magically.
Yeah,
it's like not actually who she is. It's almost a glamour.
She takes
in a
off that
sense.
magic token, and then all of a sudden, like that
Right.
magic amulet, and then all of a sudden she appears to be the wretched old hag, and then disintegrates into nothing.
Right. Well, kind of like a mortal has to have food and water to stay alive.
Right.
It's just magically sustained immortality is basically just adding extra steps to that. So it's like I have to take my potion every day, or I'll start to age.
Yeah.
Or like I've been cursed with never aging, or it's a spell or something like that. So that's like magically sustained. I can't think of many other characters like that right off the top of my head. So Melisandre was the first one that came up to me. I don't know if y'all can hear
There
it.
was an other one that Dorian Gray is a good character
Yeah.
as far as that, because he is immortal and he cannot die unless he is actually looking face to face into the painting of which is the representation of what has happened to his mortality.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So then you've got your healing factor immortals.
Wolverine.
Kind of like Wolverine.
Or Deadpool.
So it's like they're either non-aging or they're just extremely slowly aging, because we do eventually kind of see Wolverine age
Right.
into an older man, at least in those particular stories.
Right.
But he's the only one I could really think of that's like just a healing factor immortal, other than like spinoffs like The Boys, where Kimiko is kind of like the same deal, kind of.
Oh yeah,
like
Deadpool Austin mentioned has the
Deadpool.
regenerative abilities kind of thing.
I mean, he'll look like a human testicle till the end of the world.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but it's I don't know. I'm sure there's some lore explanation as to why he can't heal from that scar. Is that just before he got his powers?
That's just because whenever he got his superpowers, he had a form of cancer. So him getting his superpowers in the way that he did not only amplified his body's regenerative abilities, it also amplified his cancer. So even though his body can repair from major damage, it also replicates that cancer as well along with it. So he's always covered in this extreme form of cancer, and it's also extreme, regenerative ability from major stuff.
And so there is like examples of like pure immortals where it's like their immortality has no weaknesses and there's like no caveat to their. So it's completely different from magically sustained. It's a lot more like the Greek god kind of immortality in a way.
More of those just like just cause. Like
Kind of,
like
yeah.
that they're that way just cause.
But
Like that is their character.
It is more rare though, because it's harder for writers to kind of deal with that type of immortality. Like, because it makes it really hard to get rid of your villain, and it makes your heroes kind of the stakes of the story kind of are gone if he's purely immortal.
Entombment or something like that is usually the way that's handled, right?
Like
It's
a fate worse
being
than death
sealed.
or
Yeah,
something
exactly.
like we talked about before.
Well, even if you just break it down, and not being in like a sacrilegious way, but even if you just break it down to like character basis, you've got God and you've got the devil, who are both in this immortal, constant, forever life that they have, except one is going to be the all-knowing force and domineering over all of existence, and the other one is going to be the other one that is in hell, in captivity, trapped, and also living, also still, immortal, but on the opposite end of the spectrum of stuff.
I mean, I may have an example of this. You can tell me how close I am to it. The walking dude in The Stand, instead of dying, he just kind of dissipates and regenerates as a different person. He's the same person, he just may look different, but he's just same dude on the inside.
Like same entity.
Yeah, same entity, just different outer shell.
Their essence is constantly transferred, like it never goes away.
Right.
Yeah.
Like he like at the end of
Yeah,
it,
it kinda sounds
he's
like
walking down the street, he goes up in the sky, he dissipates and then reforms in a different body.
Sounds more like a spirit kind of entity, like so more of a spiritual entity, so kind of more of a pure immortal. Maybe.
But I mean, he's tangible. You can touch him and all that.
It's a reincarnation immortality to where your essence is constantly carried over to the next iteration.
Yeah. So you've got oblivious immortals. So to be like people like usually a young character who doesn't really know that they are immortal in a sense, or just too young to like realize what that means. And they're often insulated by kind of being around other immortals.
And that's what's going to happen whenever Amazon brings out their Lord of the Rings prequel that is the story of Legolas whenever he's growing up.
Oh gosh, yeah,
I was
dude,
thinking
they better
Rugrats.
not. They better not do that.
They may.
They honestly might. I wouldn't put it past them to put Legolas in there somehow. Just shoehorn him in there.
Orlando Bloom just walks in the background, just stares at the camera, and then just walks out of frame.
And
Shaking his head.
a lot of times with these human immortal characters, it's almost like it's great for a while, and then the concept of living forever is something we can't comprehend. So once it's happening, it becomes negative, and like all the bad comes along with it, to where the lesson of you don't want this.
Yeah, it's like a be careful of what you wish for story.
And
yeah.
that's a huge part of the trope of immortality with humans is like you don't know what this means, and once you get there, it's awful. So,
right. And then like a lot of times like it just isolates them socially. Like, you know, they are operating on the understanding that here in about 20 years, everybody's going to age and I'm not. So I've got to leave. I can't be around here. Plus, what's the point of making friends anyway? They're only going to die, and that's just going to add to my trauma, you know, for centuries.
Yeah.
There was a Blake Lively movie that actually involved that
Age
called
of Adeline.
Age of Adeline. And that was one of her biggest struggles within that movie, is actually finding love, because she knows that even though her love and her feelings may not expire for this individual, their time with her will.
Right.
And that's a big heart hurt.
Oh yeah.
And then in Lord of the Rings, you have Arwen choosing to kind of give up the life of the Eldar, like to be with Aragorn and to live a mortal life with him.
Yes.
Yeah.
Almost like that would mean more to her than being an immortal elf.
Yep.
And like Tolkien kind of he loves that idea, and that's like kind of the same. He's got like a couple of those relationships in his legendarium.
And to dumb it down some on that, you could have like the Rambo aspect, something that Rambo said in one of his movies, but it's to live for something. Oh no, to die for something or live for nothing. So it's, you know, she's putting herself in that situation to where she knows she's going to die, but it is for something that means more to her than an endless life.
Than life itself.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of a beautiful thing, honestly.
Oh yeah.
Immature immortal. I like this one. It's like they just don't act their age, and they are just kind of, you know, they won't grow up because they're just basically an immortal child. Typically, the best example I can think of is like Thor in that first Thor movie, where he's just like, you know, he's just a hothead, and like he just, you know, he won't live up to like his dad's standards.
Right. And he's had
Odin.
all this time to gain wisdom, and he just doesn't.
Right,
like it's
right.
just, nope, he's stuck in that certain spot. Like he can gain intelligence, but wisdom never comes.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's always interesting. That adds some interesting like pieces of a character.
And of course, that arc typically would be like,
Right.
they have to find it in them to grow up and change, and to like finally start taking accountability.
And then
for
they
their
get
actions.
boring.
Yeah. And then you have to find some new arc for their next movie.
Yeah.
Well, forget it. Let's just do Dark World.
Yeah, why not?
But yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting concept. I mean, me and Dane are Malazan fans, and there's a lot of like long-lived characters in those stories, and just the way that the lore has come up around them, and that oftentimes they've been alive for so long that all we have is like songs and legends about their early life. And by now, like, how much can we really read into that? Like, it's some of their like lore is kind of lost to time.
Well, some of the characters in Neil Gaiman's American Gods fall into that, like Johnny Appleseed's in there.
Yeah.
He's just the first one that came to mind because he's like long lived and we know this legend about them, but how true is that?
Right. It's almost myth deconstruction.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the 47 different Jesuses from the different aspects of the actual, what are they called in the religion when you've got the different, the ones who believe different
Denomination?
Yes, yeah, like they had like 40-something different denominations of Jesus all existing at this one party for the god Easter.
Yeah, because in that world, in Neil Gaiman's American Gods world, the immortals are only immortal as long as someone believes in them.
Right.
Like, so as long as the belief is there, they will never die. Like, and they have to keep followers in order to stay immortal, because that's what they want. Like, because if it's all they know, like for humanity, we don't know it. We don't know immortality. So once they get it, the character changes a lot more than, say, somebody that like is born to be immortal.
Right.
Like the way their story goes along, it's usually a matter of death is they're going to find a way to die. Normally the cliche part of that is usually, okay, this thing's immortal starting off. So the point of the story is, how can they die? And then the opposite way of,
well, and if you think about it, a lot of the world's religions are basically just like, do this so that you can become immortal.
To gain some sort of immortality. Exactly.
Right.
And with all of this being recorded, that's a form of immortality in itself.
Yes.
Like, this will forever live in its digital form. And you've all been able to enjoy it on Spotify and iTunes and Good Pods and the like, to where you can rate it 5 stars, an immortal 5 stars that we get to enjoy for eternity, along with your comment of why you love us or why you hate us, and you still gave us the 5 stars, which is really cool. And if you've noticed in the description of the episode, there's now Redbubble as well as Teespring, because they offer a little bit of a different selection as far as merch goes. So go over to Redbubble if you've already seen all the Teespring stuff and check and see what's different over there. And you can actually search us on redbubble.com. Like, you can actually search Nerd It Through the Grapevine or Nerd Grapevine, and it'll come up.
And also, if you wanted to discuss random thoughts with us, such as, why do dogs bark at nothing and what kind of chaos is going on in their brains, we can talk about that. If you looked us up on any of our social media platforms, be that Twitter, be that Facebook or Instagram at Nerd Grapevine, or if you wanted to get on Patreon, donate a little bit to the cause and receive a shiny holographic sticker with Nerd It's the Grapevine's logo on there, and be able to unlock different kinds of content that we don't automatically have out available for everybody, such as Grape Flavored Gaming. You can find that on Patreon by looking up Nerd Grapevine. And as always, disclaimer, make sure that our nonsense does not go just randomly heard in bits and pieces by people, because they're going to think you're insane. They're going to ask way too many questions. They're going to hear us screaming about Ryan Reynolds' character that looks like a testicle, and they're going to be like, wait, what? And that's going to cause them to have a little bit of...
Huh? Oh, my turn. You can find us on Discord. There's a link in the description, and I'm pleased to announce that now we have incorporated the Mid-Journey bot onto our Discord channel.
Yeah.
So everybody be happy and thankful, and show us what you make. Please keep it to the Mid-Journey thread. Please don't put it just anywhere in there. Let's not induce chaos, but let's have a good time. We're on there live, uncut, uncensored, and irrevocably circumcised.
And now it is time for Austin to decide what he does with the grapes that life has given him.
In my pursuit of the eternal grape, I am gifted this morsel. I am then going to coat it with enough lacquer that it will remain as strong as the Garth Brooks clock that once hung on the wall of my uncle's house. You will always remember the lacquered grape, because even though it lacked flavor, it never lacked immortality, and it will forever be a shining example of greatness to the grape universe!